fond memories of being at the Lassiter Albert cabin and snowmobiling in the winter. And I'll never forget this one winter, your dad bought himself a Skidoo. I believe it was called a Silver Bullet. It was a 440, the hottest machine out there, hottest machine, quickest machine available. And I remember David coming into the cabin talking about taking this 440 at Bear Hill in Nothing Flat. Do you guys remember Bear Hill? It was this big mountain that was one of the ways to get up to the cabin if they, from what I recall, took the long way. But I remember on that trip, just that he was a speed demon, and you loved to ride. I remember being out at the big farmhouse as a kid, and it was with the youth group, and being down there playing pool and ping pong with all the kids and your daughters, and it was just wonderful. And whoever would have known that years, maybe even just a matter of 10, 12 years, that you would be in my life as my dad. David, I will always remember you being there at my dad's bedside when he was bedridden, and you came up to visit him. That meant the world to him, and I will always remember that. And it wasn't long after that, maybe within a year, that Mom and Dad were courting, and she was gone. They had gotten married, and I looked around the house, and it was like poof, my mom was gone, and what happened? But finished college. I couldn't imagine Mom living life any other way, and it's just been a wonderful experience. You've been a grandfather to my children. From what I recall, Taylor called you Loud Papa. Whenever the kids would come in to see him, and he had been in the field, it was, "Oh buddy, oh buddy, oh buddy, oh buddy." That was how Loud Papa greeted the kids, and it was just great. It was always a time when he was going to tickle them and wrestle, and it's just been wonderful. I'm just so grateful for you, Dad. I love you, and thank you for being a great example to my family.
I'm Ron Stansel. I grew up with David. I remember as a young boy, the highlight of my summer would be if I would get to spend a week or two on the farm with David and Jonathan. And I remember as a young teenager, probably 13, maybe 14 years old, I was spending a week with them, and we were haying. And one of my fondest memories is we would stop in the middle of the afternoon, go over to the canal, slide down the spillway, swim, get up, slide down the spillway, go back to haying. But one of the fondest memories is a memory that you may not want to remember. It was a dirty, dusty afternoon. David and I decided we were going to take the pickup with the stock rack, drove it over on the Highline Canal, tied a rope to the top of the stock rack, got nude and skied in the Highline Canal.
Well, I really have only one great memory with Uncle David when I was young, and I was married, and when I was working for my dad, Heidemann, we had about a week that there was no work. And I remember Uncle David said, "You can come out and help me swath hay." And I had never drove a swather in my life. I drove an old 730 John Deere tractor with harrow, that was no problem. But as I was swathing the hay, Uncle David came out later on and he says, "You cannot even keep a straight line. My girls can do a better job than you."
Grandpa, you're one of the most generous people I've ever known in my life. When I was 16, I had this old beater car, and the clutch got smoked on it, and the car was undrivable. He caught wind of it and bought a clutch, drove all the way up to Seattle from Kimberly, and put a clutch in my car for me. And then just a couple years later, we're moving to Montana, and he caught wind that Jeremy and I were big into snowboarding, so he had a couple of pairs of snowshoes made out of steel. And he had it commissioned by a guy, the guy bend it and weld it, and all we had to do was weave leather straps onto them, and we have snowshoes to go snowboarding. And then just a little while later after that, we were moving up from Missoula to Whitefish, and you came up all the way from Kimberly again and helped us load up and move all our stuff all the way up from southern Montana all the way to northern Montana. And spent like 3 days with us. Like,
You could see
yeah,
us running
freezing.
your house.
Yeah, we were so like poor and cheap that we kept the house at like 50 degrees in Bozeman, Montana, where it gets to like -20. I don't know anyone else in my life that have done anything like that for me other than my mom. So, thank Grandpa. I love you.
I don't even know where to begin with Grandpa, but I got the pleasure, and I couldn't wait to go down in the summers to work on my grandpa's farm. But it wasn't ever really work because I got to hang out with Warm and Scott, and we'd go set water, then we'd probably go have coffee for about 2, 3, 4 hours. But my grandpa was just the most generous guy, and he just had the biggest heart he helped everyone, and I went to Lyon College and I came down, and I think he had a surgery or something, but he had the 4-wheeler just loaded up in a trailer, and we went down to Nevada, and we were cruising through, and he was showing me all these other things. Well, I forget what happened, but he came around a corner a little too fast or something, and he rolled it on him, and I had to pull the machine off of him, and I remember him saying, "Don't tell anybody about this, okay?" Okay. You know, but just being able to be around someone like my grandpa was, I'm just a blessed person, and he's amazing. So happy birthday, Grandpa, and thank you for all you've done.
You know, I do have a really wonderful memory, Norman Scott, that one time I came to visit Dad, and we went to the office for breakfast, and Dad was about ready to have surgery on his wrist, and it was right in the middle of the summer, and all of you guys came in, one right after the other. Now, don't worry about the farm, we've got you. And every one of you explained to him how you were alternating taking care of his farm for him. And I just marveled at how wonderful it was that all of you jumped in and helped him, but how amazing Dad was to have built the friendships he did. And it really speaks volumes for you, Dad. And I hope all of us have learned great lessons from you about building long-time friendships and always having people have your back.
Alvin Hill and I were friends with David too, and I was friends with some of the other people around here, pretty close friends, still am with one of them. But the first time David came over that I remember, I was trying to get on a little horse showing my kids, and I was scared to death of the horse. But he was there, so I decided I'll stay on. And I did till after he left. And I just wanted to thank you, David. I've enjoyed being with you. I'm sure Alvin knows I'm talking to you. I just know we felt real friendship with David.
Uncle David, my nostalgia isn't nearly as deep, but you helped me change my life.
Hallelujah.
And I think you know that. And it was something as simple as me just showing up at your place because I wanted to come see you. I don't know where it came from, but I know it was divine. And I showed up at your place just to come see you, and you had an RV for sale, and I was looking to buy. And you cut me a heck of a deal, and I'm still living in it now. So I thank you for helping me change my life. That's all I have.
So, like my dad said, when I was growing up, he was in grad school, and so, like, every weekend, my brother and I would get to go down to the farm and hang out with Grandpa, and I remember kids in my class used to talk about how much they hated seeing their grandparents on the weekends and over the summer because it was so boring and they just sat around. And I was so proud to say that I love to spend my summers and my weekends with my grandpa and my grandma. And that my grandpa was so fun, and I got to ride tractors with him, and it was just the best thing ever. And he was just always so full of life and so full of joy, and would always greet us so loud anytime he came in from the farm, and it was just so much fun, and I just love you so much, Grandpa.
After hearing all that, I'm gonna change my ways. None of them told the dirty tricks. So I guess I just appreciate everything. I didn't expect something like this. Don't realize how many friends you have. I appreciate every one of you.
Well, everyone, thank you for coming. I know some of you came a long distance. Aunt Rosella flew in from Phoenix and surprised Dad. He didn't know she was coming. She came with Diana. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This all means so much to Dad. Gayla and Cheryl came from our Uncle Everett's girls, and all of Uncle Jonathan's girls are here. Dana made a sacrifice of staying longer to be here, and it's just wonderful to have the family together. It's been a long time, and thank you all for coming. And don't feel like you have to rush away.